left Oliver 3 times. The first time was when we were 20. At that time, we were deeply in love. We even promised to be together forever. He blocked all my contact information when my mother was seriously ill. He went to Europe with his childhood sweetheart. My heart was shattered. I took my mother abroad for treatment. After I left, Oliver was in great pain. He chased after me abroad. I hired the best doctor to treat my mother. He even volunteered to donate blood for her. After a year of treatment, my mother recovered. I forgave him, and I married him. Later, when I had a premature birth, it was critical. I almost lost my life. He found an excuse for a business trip. He went to attend his female friend's wedding. He even spent a lot of money to help her throw a dream wedding. Spent a lot of money to help her organize a dream wedding. I'm disheartened. Left the divorce agreement. She left with her daughter. Oliver was devastated when he found out. The usually proud man actually knelt and apologized to me in front of the media. For the sake of the child, I chose to forgive again. The third time was yesterday. I saw him being intimate with his female secretary in the office. I had already prepared the divorce agreement. I also bought a plane ticket to go abroad. This time, Oliver wasn't panicking like before. He sneered coldly. "What are you going to act out your chasing wife drama again? This time, how long do you plan to make me chase you?" He coldly threw the divorce agreement in front of me. "Sophia, don't joke around. You're already 30 years old. You're no longer a 20-year-old girl. You can't be willful all the time. Those few sheets of paper are very thin, but they hurt like a knife when slapped across the face." I forced a smile. My eyes sparkled with tears. I bent down. "Go pick up the scattered papers on the ground." It's just such a simple action, but my waist hurts as if it were struck. It was due to being born prematurely. My body suffered damage, leaving behind incurable aftereffects. "Sophia, are you going to keep this up?" Oliver took a puff of his cigarette. He seemed very irritated. He said, "You're already 30 years old. You're not a child anymore. What are you still making a fuss about? Have I spoiled you too much, that you keep threatening me with divorce? You'll be going abroad in 3 days. Right? Haven't you had enough of this trick? I'll give you money. You can spend it like this. I'm not making a scene. Nor am I threatening you. I'm holding back my tears." I said calmly, "Yesterday, I saw Oliver was interacting intimately with a young and beautiful female secretary in the office. The girl, who looks to be in her early 20s, seems a bit excited. Mr. Oliver, you are being too forceful. I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed. How can Mrs. Oliver tolerate this from you?" Oliver smirked slightly amidst his busy schedule. He held the female secretary tighter. "I've lost interest long ago. She's already over 30, and she's had children. How can she compare to you?" "Ah, be gentle." The female secretary tightly grasped Oliver's arm with her slender fingers. She smiled and said to him, "If Mrs. Oliver can't satisfy you, then let me give it a try. I promise to make you feel comfortable." Oliver smiled at her. "Since you promised to satisfy me, don't scream in pain." Then, he changed his position while holding her. I could no longer bear to watch what happened next. I fled in a panic, walking down the street like a madman, crying and laughing. 12 years. I never expected it to end this way. Turns out he hates me that much, even humiliating me ruthlessly in front of others. I still held a glimmer of hope for him. I can't forget how he once loved me. It's truly ridiculous in the end. I'm completely disappointed in this man. I've decided to leave. When I brought up that old love, Oliver's hand trembled. The cigarette butt fell. It burned a small hole in the white carpet. "So what?" Oliver turned around, raised his voice, with an air of righteousness. "Which powerful and wealthy man isn't like this? I'm just playing around. Mrs. Oliver's position will always be yours. No one can shake your status. Sophia, you're not getting any younger. Stop messing around. Look at you now. You gained over 20 pounds after having the baby. I can't even manage my own figure. Where would my interest come from as a wife? Isn't it your duty to satisfy your husband's needs? You can't do that. What's wrong with me finding someone else? They don't care that I haven't given them a title. What do you care about?" I stared blankly at Oliver. I felt waves of sadness inside, as if an invisible hand was squeezing. It hurt so much that I couldn't catch my breath. Tears were welling up in my eyes. So that's it. In his eyes, I'm just a yellow-faced woman who doesn't interest him. I gritted my teeth. Not a word. I was so upset that I couldn't breathe. Oliver didn't get the answer he wanted. Angry, he turned and left. Half an hour later, I received a photo on my phone. A large hand bound a pair of delicate, slender wrists with a black tie, pressed against a white sheet. That hand I had held for many years. That tie. It was a gift I gave him for our wedding anniversary 2 months ago. Looking at this photo, I was smiling, but then I started crying. After a long while, I wiped the tears from my face. I said, "Oliver, you can be mistaken sometimes too." Oliver always said, "The position of Mrs. Oliver will always be mine." He told me, "The canary he raised is very obedient. It won't cause any trouble. As long as I don't make a fuss, everything will be very calm." But he doesn't realize, such photos, I have received 74 of them in the last 6 months. In the evening, I was building blocks with my daughter. Emily suddenly said, "Mom, why are you making such a fuss? Why did you argue with Dad? You always talk about wanting a divorce. You often mention wanting to go abroad. I was just born back then. You just take me around everywhere. You're being so immature. Moreover, just look at how you are now. No man would like a woman like you. There's no man who would like that. Your father has already been good enough to you. Just stop making a fuss." My daughter's words make me feel dizzy. Everything in front of me is blurry. How does she know about these things in her eyes? Am I really that terrible? What should I have done back then? I've lived for 30 years. I've never felt this much of a failure before. Just then, Oliver came home from work. He looks in a good mood. You don't need to guess. Someone must have told her about our divorce. He has always been very loving towards our daughter and very upright. This person looks gentle and refined. He completely looks like a successful person. Who would have thought? He was still playing that game with his female secretary a few hours ago. Emily jumped into Oliver's arms. She loves her dad so much, yet she dislikes me so much. Maybe in this family, I'm just an extra. Since that's the case, why should I force myself to stay? I suddenly smiled, looking at my husband and child, with gentle eyes. "Don't worry, everyone. I won't cause any more trouble." "That's good," Oliver said as he held my hand. While holding my hand, being together as a family is more important than anything. I just smiled, without saying a word. Oliver rarely has the interest to play games with Emily. I walked into the bedroom and picked up the phone that had rung 3 times. I asked helplessly, "Isabella, is there something going on?" Isabella is a good friend of Oliver's. They have known each other since high school. In college, they started a business together. Later, Isabella became one of the shareholders of Oliver Group. However, after I married Oliver, when I was pregnant, Isabella confessed her feelings to Oliver. Oliver certainly did not accept. The two of them fell out completely because of this. She acted on impulse and quickly married a man she had only met once. Oliver, however, disregarded the distance. He specially pursued her there and gave her a dream wedding. Since then, Isabella has had no contact with us. 7 years have passed. Today, she suddenly came to find me. "What does she want?" "I'm downstairs at your place." Isabella hung up after saying that. Half an hour later, I saw her at the coffee shop downstairs. She was sitting across from me. Her makeup was exquisite. "What do you want from me?" "My son is not my husband's." Isabella's words were like a thunderclap. "He is 6 years and 4 months old this year. I want him to do a paternity test with Oliver. We spent half a month together before. During that time, there were a few occasions without protection. I mechanically opened my mouth, but I couldn't say a word. Oliver clearly said, nothing happened between him and Isabella. He lied to me. He has been lying to me since 7 years ago. How could I be so foolish? To have been deceived by him for so long, but I still can't accept it. I forced myself to speak, but my fingers trembled uncontrollably. He said, nothing happened between you two. How could you believe him? Isabella's eyes widened. She said in surprise, he knows I like him. He even specially came a long way to find me. You actually think nothing happened between us? Sophia, why are you so stupid? Isabella said as she played a video. In the video, young Oliver is gently kissing Isabella, starting from her forehead, slowly moving down, gently kissing away her tears. Isabella, completely naked, tightly embraces Oliver. You clearly have feelings for me too. Why don't you want to be with me? Sophia is pregnant. I have to take care of her, Oliver said breathlessly, then tightly held Isabella. All right, I won't affect your relationship. I just need you to be with me for half a month, I promise you. The video has finished playing. The intimate scenes made my eyes ache. It felt like my heart was being cut by a knife. Even breathing became difficult. At that time, Oliver knelt in front of me, swearing to me. He said he had never touched a single finger of Isabella. Absolutely never cheated for real. Because of this, I forgave him. Now I understand how foolish I was. Isabella looked at Sophia with a sympathetic expression. Go ahead. Sophia, I used to be jealous of you. Now I only feel you truly make people feel sorry for you. It's not just me. Oliver's childhood friend. They had a relationship too. The reason I confessed to Oliver is because I knew what happened between them. The result is obvious. He couldn't refuse. That's in a man's nature. How can you expect Oliver to reject a woman who approaches him just because he loves you? My heart has long been numbed by pain. Yet it was hit hard once again. It turns out this relationship had already soured 10 years ago, and I was kept in the dark all along. There is no real reunion of broken mirrors. That's just deceiving oneself. I finally couldn't help but cry. I really regret it. I regret being soft-hearted back then, which led to this awkward situation now. I'm really regretting it. Just tell him directly I have no objections. I wiped away my tears. I stood up awkwardly when I got home. Emily was already asleep. I quietly watched her for a while. Then I returned to the bedroom. The bedroom door wasn't shut tightly. I took a glance through the crack of the door. I was instantly struck as if by lightning. Oliver was leaning against the headboard. He lit a cigarette. He raised an eyebrow and smiled. His little secretary was wearing my pajamas. She had a charming posture. She was sitting on him. She kissed his neck. The two were happily chatting and laughing. It seems Mrs. Oliver isn't very good at cooking. Mr. Oliver still needs me to deliver takeout at home. Oliver smiled. That's right. She's getting older, and she doesn't know how to please others. How could she compare to you? If it weren't for the affection we've built over the years, I really don't want to pay attention to her. If only you could teach her. As long as Mrs. Oliver is willing to let me be her teacher, of course, I would teach her seriously. After all, I know best how to satisfy Mr. Oliver. Watching those two flirt without a care, my heart hurt so much I could barely breathe. Tears kept flowing. My heart was filled with anger. I could hardly tell whether the person in front of me was a human or a ghost. How could I fall in love with such a man and love him for so many years? Oliver has so many houses. There are also quite a few hotels outside. Why does he have to bring someone home and to my bed? Isn't this humiliating me? I really can't take it anymore. I suddenly pushed the door open. The two of them seemed very calm. The little secretary gave me a provocative glance, then cuddled up in Oliver's arms. Oliver appeared even more composed. He said, "Since you have returned, you can sleep in the bedroom. I will take her to the guest room." Oliver got out of bed with the woman in his arms. He appeared calm. It seemed like they were not doing anything shameful, but rather they were doing something completely normal. My self-esteem has been trampled time and again. My already shattered heart has been crushed again. I can no longer hold it in. I shouted out in anger, "Leave, you all leave. You promised not to make a scene again." Oliver frowned. He actually interpreted my earlier statement of not making a scene as permission to cheat at will. I couldn't stop crying. My voice was choked with sobs. "Oliver, just seeing you makes me uncomfortable. Are you going to continue like this? In the past, when I cried, Oliver would always hold me tightly. He was heartbroken, but now he coldly said, 'Since that's the case, I will cancel your card. You should think about it carefully,' he said while walking away with the person in his arms. At this moment, she said in a spoiled manner, 'Mrs. Oliver really doesn't understand. I won't make a fuss. Mr. Oliver can play however he wants. You're still obedient. I like you the most.' I stood still. It felt like I had been slapped a few times. How could I be so embarrassed, so humiliated? Is it just because I love Oliver? Do I deserve this? Emily came out of the room, staring at me with dissatisfaction. "Mom, didn't you promise not to make a fuss anymore? Why has it started again?" I couldn't say a word. I escaped into the study, huddled in the corner, trembling uncontrollably. I hugged myself tightly, thinking to hold on a little longer. Just hold on a little longer. We'll be able to leave soon. No more dealing with those uncomfortable people. 2 hours later, my phone received a voice message. Oliver's female secretary spoke quickly. "Mr. Oliver, you're so deeply involved. What if she gets pregnant? What's there to worry about if she has a child? Just let her have it. Our Oliver group is financially strong. Can't we afford to raise a child?" Oliver chuckled. He looked quite pleased. "If Mrs. Oliver can't accept me, what should we do?" The secretary said in a coquettish tone. "She can only rely on me for a living. What are you afraid of her for?" The recording suddenly stopped. I shook my head with a wry smile. "Oliver, you really are full of lies. I suffered physically from having a daughter. He once said he would only have one child. Emily, in this lifetime. Now I realize. He actually has so many children outside. I organized the recordings and all the photos I received during this time. I sent them to the lawyer. I've entrusted him to handle this after I leave, to give Oliver the evidence of his infidelity and the divorce agreement. I have enough evidence in hand. I'm sure I can win the lawsuit, but I really don't have time to drag this out with him. Oliver has been gone for 3 days. I'm quite happy to have some peace and quiet. I wrote down all the details about my daughter in the document. Although the tutor and the nanny are very responsible, I'm still worried. Unfortunately, she has been ignoring me these past few days. She won't even say a word. The day Oliver comes back is Monday morning. It's also the day I'm preparing to leave. At 8 o'clock in the morning, the nanny is busy making breakfast in the kitchen. As soon as Oliver walks in, he walks straight up to me. Emily is wide-eyed, curiously watching us. It seems Oliver has something to say, but he doesn't say it. He turns his head, smiled at Emily. Today is the anniversary of your mother's passing. I'm back to see her off. I was taken aback. Oliver really came back to see me off. But when I saw the teasing look in his eyes, I immediately understood. He doesn't believe that I would actually leave. This is just him teasing me. I know in my heart. I looked up and smiled at him. Well, thank you for seeing me off. Goodbye, my mother is really unbearable. I really don't like her. Emily turned her head, not wanting to look at me. I said nothing. The smile on my face remained gentle. It was 8:30. Our family of 3 finished breakfast. Oliver went to work. Emily went to school at 9 o'clock. I casually grabbed a jacket I often wear and put it on, changed my shoes, walked out the door. Oliver, I have officially said goodbye to you. You have accepted it too. So our relationship has finally come to an end. 20 hours later, the plane lands in New York. I made plans in advance. As soon as I get off the plane, I head straight to the hospital. Back when I was giving birth, I was left with an irreversible after effect. And before giving birth, I was a pilot. This has been my dream since childhood. I persevered for many years for it, but after graduating from university, I was only a pilot for 1 year. Then I got pregnant with my daughter. I originally thought, after giving birth, I could return to the flying career I loved. I didn't expect, because I was injured during childbirth, I could never be a pilot again. Fortunately, 7 years have passed. The advances in modern medicine have given me another chance to try. In the hospital room, the doctor reminds me once again, Sophia, if the surgery is not successful, your back injury may become more serious than it is now. It could even lead to paralysis. Are you sure you want to go through with this surgery? I'm sure, I nodded. At 20, Sophia was full of energy, dreaming of exploring the universe. Back then, I felt the future was full of infinite possibilities. But at 30, I have already been worn down by life. I've become a despised housewife. It seems like nothing I do is right. Is this how my life is going to be? I'm not willing to accept that. I want to try to make a change. Since you've already made your decision, the surgery is scheduled for a week later. Okay. I personally signed the surgery consent form, quietly waiting for that moment to arrive. A week later, I lay down on the operating table myself. Now I can only rely on myself when I woke up. A sudden panic filled my heart. Was the surgery successful? I will be able to realize my dreams in the future, or I might end up paralyzed in bed. If it really comes to that, what should I do? Fortunately, the nurse came to my side in time. She had a smile on her face. Sophia, congratulations. The surgery was very successful. Hearing this, tears instantly welled up in my eyes. It felt as if a part of me that I lost many years ago finally returned to my body. After fully waking up, the doctor looked at me seriously. Sophia, the recovery period after surgery is very crucial. How much your waist can recover depends on this rehabilitation training. I understand. I smiled. I let the rehabilitation therapist help me onto the rehabilitation equipment. The process of rehabilitation is about tearing open old wounds time and again, then letting them slowly heal. This pain is unbearable. I fell to the ground, drenched in sweat. In a daze, I saw my past self. Back then, 18-year-old Oliver held my hand tightly. He said to me seriously, Sophia, I will love you for the rest of my life. Later, he contemptuously embraced someone else. He showed his disdain towards me without any disguise. I have no interest in older women like Sophia at all. Seeing her makes me uncomfortable, let alone wanting to get close to her. When my little daughter first called me mommy, I was filled with joy. I felt she was my whole world. But later, the 7-year-old child looked at me angrily and said, Why are you so stubborn? Can't you listen to Dad? If it weren't for Dad, what else would you have in their company? I gritted my teeth. I stood up from the ground. Let's do it again. I once thought I had everything. Only later did I understand. In fact, I have nothing. But there must be something that can truly be grasped, right? Even if it's at 30, talking about dreams shouldn't be ridiculed. I will continue to work hard. 6 months later, I completed my rehabilitation training. I met a friend I hadn't been in touch with for a long time. He opened a private helicopter flying school in New York. Since I haven't flown in years, I need to relearn the flying skills here. Ethan was taken aback. He said, "Sophia, I didn't expect to run into you here. It's not too late to think of it now." I smiled and hugged him. "Can I now call you teacher?" "Haha, you were my senior back then." What a turn of fortune, I just smiled. I didn't say anything. When I was in the hospital, the doctor asked me if I regretted the decision to get married and have a daughter. I answered, "I have no regrets at all." Sophia, who once dreamed of marriage with love, did nothing wrong. Neither does Sophia, who now chooses to let go of the past and start anew. 6 months later, I successfully passed the driving skills test. When I first flew a helicopter by myself, as I soared into the sky, my heart was filled with indescribable complex emotions. But more than anything, there was a sense of satisfaction rising from deep within. I succeeded. Over the year, I successfully drew a line between myself and my past. Though the process was as painful as peeling skin and pulling muscles, but I did it. I took off my flight suit. I walked out of the school with a smile on my face. Inside, I felt a bit narcissistic, thinking I seemed to have aged back a few years. Just then, I saw a familiar figure. It was Oliver. He looked quite a bit thinner. He appeared very fatigued. He hurriedly ran towards me and hugged me tightly. "Sophia, I guessed it was you. I guessed it was you. Do you know how much I've missed you? How could you be so heartless?" He just left me like that. I was stunned for a moment. How could he appear in a place like this? I quickly came to my senses. I pushed him away with all my strength. "What are you doing here?" "I came to find you, Sophia. I'll take you home." "How could you just leave without saying a word? Just left me like that." "Sophia, this is really too much. I'm a bit confused." I took a step back. "You knew I was leaving that day," I said calmly. "We even said our goodbyes." "I don't understand. Why does Oliver look like he's seen a heartbreaker? I also don't get why he said I left without a word. What does it mean to leave him behind?" I thought he was just joking. Oliver's expression suddenly changed. He said, "I really didn't expect you to leave that day." I hurried back home, seeing that you were still there. Only then did I breathe a sigh of relief. Later, I had my secretary keep an eye on your movements. She told me you didn't take a suitcase. It was probably just to go buy groceries. I didn't expect you would really leave. Sophia, don't be angry. I understand that I was wrong about the previous matters. I have already let her go. Would you be willing to come home with me? Don't worry. I promise you. From now on, I will only be with you. I will never do those foolish things again." Seeing Oliver looking regretful, in a hurry to explain, I couldn't help but want to laugh a little. That day, he rarely found the time. He took a moment from his busy schedule to glance at me. He even specifically had his secretary pay attention to my situation. But I had already decided to let go of everything back home. So why would I need to bring any luggage? Moreover, that secretary, isn't she just his lover? "Sophia, I was wrong. Forgive me. Will you come back with me?" Oliver didn't say anything else. He just kept apologizing on the bustling street. He suddenly knelt in front of me. "Sophia, everything is my fault. Will you come back with me? Your daughter is still waiting for you at home." This scene reminded me of the past. As if time overlapped, I saw him crying in front of me once again. I sighed. My heart felt a pang of bitterness. After all, I loved for so long. Although I kept saying I would let go, I still feel sad because of him, but I won't go soft-hearted. I once forgave him because of love, but it only led me into endless pain. This time, I will never make the same mistake again. Oliver, stop it. I will not forgive you, and I won't go back to my country. Our marriage has already become a mere formality. If you want a divorce certificate, we can go get it. If you don't need it, I won't force you either, but your sudden interruption like this, it really has no meaning. I turned and left. After arguing with Oliver for so many years, all the harsh words have been said. There's no need to entangle further. I know he won't easily give up. He has begged me for forgiveness time and again before. As long as he remains persistent, continuously expressing his sincerity, people around will help persuade me to get along with him. I've seen this kind of thing so many times. 6 months later, Oliver stood at my door again. He wanted to invite me to dinner. I calmly refused as usual. Seeing that I still wouldn't agree, Oliver finally couldn't hold back. He angrily threw the roses in his hand on the ground. He blocked the door I was about to close with his hand. He forced his way in. I know he has reached his limit. He stopped talking, quietly looking at him. Oliver, are you going to hit me? How could I possibly hit you? Oliver was furious. He said to Sophia, Sophia, how have I treated you all these years? Don't you have any idea I have been so good to you? How could you think of me like this? But you did cheat. I let out a cold laugh. Just because of this matter, he doesn't deserve forgiveness. That's right, I did cheat. But didn't you forgive me before? Oliver shouted loudly. When I was younger, you could forgive me. Why can't you now? Hearing him speak so confidently, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Ha ha ha. Oliver, so you are also aware you cheated before too? Oliver was taken aback. He took a step back. He looked very flustered. He didn't dare to look at me anymore. His guilty expression was truly ridiculous. I wore a mocking expression. I wiped away the tears of laughter. You said you traveled around Europe with your childhood sweetheart, just to fulfill the promise you made when you were young. You haven't even touched a finger of hers. You said you went to help Isabella prepare for her wedding, just to not disappoint her feelings for you. You know she likes you, but you can't respond. This makes you feel guilty about your years of friendship. You said there's nothing between you and them. You have never done anything inappropriate. You said from the beginning until now, your body and heart have only been for me, completely pure. I spoke each word clearly. Oliver's expression grew increasingly ugly. He suddenly shouted, enough, don't say any more. Why can't you just say it? Pain spread in waves. It felt like an old wound was being torn open again. But if the old wound isn't reopened, how can it be completely healed? I sighed helplessly. Oliver, I really loved you back then. I believed in you wholeheartedly. But Isabella told me you once had a very close relationship. It lasted for half a month. There was even a child, just half a year younger than our daughter. You had an ambiguous relationship with your childhood sweetheart back then. We were both only 20 years old. You cheated both physically and emotionally. What more do you want me to do? I took a deep breath. Looking at the man in front of me, I said coldly, you deceived me for a full 10 years. You treated me like a fool. Isn't that enough? Everyone knows you indeed cheated twice before. Only I was kept in the dark. Everyone knows. You have been unfaithful before, but I have forgiven you for that. The things you did before are no different from your later actions of keeping young models and flaunting your affairs at work. And I really shouldn't have filed for divorce over this. I'm too sensitive. I'm being unreasonable. I'm just making a fuss. I don't even have the right to be angry. Oliver, you said you love me. Is this your way of expressing love? But I feel that this doesn't feel like love. Oliver's face was filled with pain. But faced with this undeniable fact, he couldn't say a word in the end. He could only helplessly give up. He said something. I just did what most men would do. Why can't you just forgive me? We're already at this age. Can't we just live our lives well? No. I let out a cold laugh, although that's something any man might do. But I still have the right to choose not to forgive. I smiled calmly. I tried to suppress the bitterness in my heart. Oliver, you should leave, I said as I opened the door, trying to get him to go. I didn't expect that. He suddenly picked me up. I asked in surprise, Oliver, what are you trying to do? He replied, Sophia, I told you, we are meant to be together forever. Oliver's eyes were frighteningly red. He looked as if he had lost his mind. Without saying a word, he directly picked me up and stuffed me into the car. Sophia, we are not divorced yet. We are still a couple. We will be together for a lifetime. I will never allow you to leave me. Let me go. I have a flight mission today. Oliver, you can't treat me like this. I struggled with all my strength. Oliver shouted loudly. What does that matter? Shouldn't I be the most important person to you? I stared blankly at this person. He told me when he was 18. Sophia, go pursue your dreams. I will always protect you. 13 years have passed. Everything has changed. Yeah, he has changed a lot. What does that little change matter? Fine, just don't regret it. After I said that, I closed my eyes. Oliver thought I agreed. Start the car, drive to a deserted place. Suddenly, I lunged at him like I was crazy. I grabbed Oliver's steering wheel. Oliver was startled. He shouted, Sophia, are you insane? That's right, I really am crazy. I laughed out loud. Years of repressed grievances suddenly burst forth. You made me watch you with someone else. And now you ask me why I've become this way. You keep saying bad things about me in front of my daughter. You all laughed at me together. You hurt me. And you still ask me why I am like this. I went to New York for surgery. After 6 months of recovery, I can finally fly in the sky again. And now you want to take me away at this moment. You ask why I am like this. Oliver, I once considered a peaceful separation with you. Even if we are no longer a couple, we could still raise our daughter together. You insist on forcing me into a corner. Then let's perish together." The car was about to crash into the guardrail. Oliver quickly hit the brakes, but the front of the car still crashed heavily. At that critical moment, Oliver rushed over and hugged me tightly. The car window shattered. Shards pierced into his body. Oliver let out a soft hum, but he held me even tighter. It was then that I finally calmed down. I recalled my earlier actions. A wave of regret washed over me. It was hard-earned to live the life I wanted. How could I do something so foolish? Oliver asked me anxiously, "Sophia, are you okay?" He was sweating profusely. He looked seriously injured. I couldn't help but think about how his hands had held someone else. I felt a wave of discomfort, so I pushed him away. I took out my phone and called for help. I calmly said to him, "Oliver, if you insist on forcing me to be with you, this is how it will end for us. You want to watch me die in front of you, of course. I wouldn't think like that. How could I possibly have such thoughts?" Oliver's eyes turned red. He said excitedly, "Sophia, I truly love you. I can't see that. By the way, I haven't asked until now. Is Isabella's child yours?" I watched Oliver laughing all the time. He finally turned his head away shyly. "Yes, all right. Since that's the case, take good care of the child. Don't bother me again. Otherwise, we'll both be done for." Oliver was silent for a moment. In the end, he shook his head with a bitter smile. "Sophia, do you really hate me this much?" "Yes," I said coldly. "I hate you." Oliver looked at me. His eyes were filled with tears. He asked, "What about our daughter? Do you not want her either?" "For her, having a mother who lives freely and is herself is much better than being a housewife who depends on men and is looked down upon as boring." "That's right. I have savings. I didn't use your money." Oliver had threatened to cancel my card before, but he was too full of himself. He completely ignored that I didn't need his money at all. During the time when I couldn't be a pilot, I also had my own business to run. I existed quietly under his spotlight, making him think I couldn't do without him. But now, he should see the truth. When the rescue arrived, I calmly watched them take Oliver away. "Sophia, don't go, okay?" Oliver was shouting loudly behind me, but I felt it was really embarrassing for him to act like that. "I have a flight mission today. I can't waste more time with him."